This is Ron Schwanke with Crimson Addictions. We're here at the Crimson Addictions compound in Millbrook, Alabama, wrapping up this year's hunt. I'm here with Will Little, Eric Beers, our new pro staffer, Justin Sexton. We're going to start off by letting Will and Eric describe their hunt in Ohio. So, where'd y'all go and how was it?
Man, that was a drive. If I got to tell you anything, 763 miles all the way from Millbrook to Walhonding, Ohio. Woo, 12 and a half hours.
Well, I got some good sleep on the way up there. But
yeah, straight driving for me, sleeping for him.
What outfitter did y'all go to?
went to Ohio Trophy Buck Outfitters. It's up near Coshocton, Ohio. Most of the land we were hunting on was just rolling hardwood bottoms.
Well, not only was it hardwoods, we did a couple times hunt on some peninsulas, right along the edges of some cornfields that were already cut down, of course, with it already being harvest season. It was basically a floodgate right there. I mean, we saw so much sign. There was deer movement, scrapes, rubs.
It's like a big funnel area.
When were y'all there?
We were there December 18th to the 23rd. The lodgings were excellent. You couldn't ask for a better place to stay.
Going through here, you got some more bunk beds.
Believe it or not, they had good sweet tea up
This
there
is
at
nice
the
place.
outfit.
In Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yeah,
Our guide could make some good sweet tea.
Oven, the
God
toaster.
forbid you ask a
Make some
restaurant
coffee
for
in the
something.
morning.
Yeah. Yeah, we ran into that on our trip.
Two nice refrigerators.
So who was your guy?
Guy's place over there.
Outfitter?
Well,
All
right
these
now,
recliners, man, this
Woodbury
is
Outdoors.
where we're going to spend most of our downtime.
The outfitter.
Sitting here,
Ty
talking, telling
is in the
stories.
process of purchasing out, which is our
Whatever we
guide.
feel like.
So next year, Ty
Man,
will
this
be
is
our
awesome place.
outfitter along as the guide. We were up there with two other guys from Pennsylvania, and from what they were telling us, they don't produce larger deer in Pennsylvania, so that's why they transferred over. And from website views and talking to Ty Moore and getting involved with them over at Ohio Trophy Buck, when they made their decision along as with us, with them Ohio Trophy Buck Outfitters being our only Ohio outfitter, it was the place to go. Not only was the cabin just the perfect setup, has a walk-in deep freeze at the back for whenever you do kill your deer. Had what, 6 or 8 sets of bunk beds, perfect setup, had space offs to where you did have your own personal space. You weren't just out there in the middle of everybody having your stuff just thrown around. It was, I tell you what, when it started snowing, being able to go and actually make a fire in that fireplace, it was no better feeling.
Yeah, the pictures y'all sent out of the lodge and the fireplace and all the mountains and everything, and it looked really nice. Looked like a nice
When we went out day one, they had us walk along some thicket along the pines. Shit, it wasn't pines. Had us walk down the around the cornfield, and we cut across the power line. Went down into where the hardwoods were, climbed up most of their stands, other than for individual hunters. There's about 9 stands they have pre-set up for a film crew. That way we didn't have to actually go in the day before, lock our on, scout the area. We could just do it straight scouting. Didn't have to waste that extra time getting set up. And that was nice. We had it, the way the power lines cut through, it was basically just a good bed down area, traffic coming through where we were sitting along some cutout trails to get to the corn that had been pre-cut, that way for feeding. So we had the best of both worlds. We had bedding, feeding.
Big transition area.
But it sounds like the weather didn't cooperate with y'all too well.
It wasn't cold enough. Well,
first 2 days.
From us being down here, it was pretty cold up there. I mean, it was 30 degrees most of the time. Ty, he told us it wasn't cold enough. I mean, there was snow on the ground, but
it wasn't much, maybe 2 or 3 inches.
I guess it wasn't what they're used to up there.
Right.
The snow, I mean, the winds, I think, killed us. We had 30-mile-an-hour winds nearly the whole time.
That's tough to bow hunt in.
Yeah.
It's tough to do any kind of.
With the wind that strong, I mean, it would have been real hard to put a 30-yard shot on a deer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were limited to 20 yards.
Yeah.
When the wind was pushing like it was. I mean, 30 mile an hour winds the whole time. When we were watching the weather, it did get up to 45, 48 mile an hour winds. I mean, we're talking about a carbon shaft arrow going maybe 300 feet per second. It's going to move.
Oh yeah. But when you get winds that high, it really cuts down on the deer movement. They're gonna
All they want to do is bed.
They're gonna sit in the bed all day long, and if that wind will lay after dark, then they'll come out and feed after dark.
One good thing we did have going for us is good preparation. We went ahead and did tubs. We used them scent wafers. Went ahead, we took scent blocker, made sure that we were completely scent free when we went out in the woods. Did proper scent control. That way, when the winds did pick up, the deer that we did see while we were there weren't spooked off by us. Yes, they were bedding down, but pre-hunt scent control is a major key when you have winds like we did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when you start talking about getting in them bottoms and everything.
Oh, yes.
It blows your scent right down into them bottoms and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, the wind was on our side. I mean, whenever it was blowing hard, it was perfect wind direction.
But I guess when the winds get that strong, the deer are skittish if they do move.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What we did see on film, we had a buck that was still chasing, and we barely caught that on footage. But when we saw that, Eric had the idea. We went ahead. We had Rick, which was another one of our guides. He went to town, got us some doe and heat in a rag pull.
A drag rag.
Yeah, and we dragged it in from where the corn was, and hung up a buck bomb to see if we could maybe get him to, since he's still chasing at post rut for them.
Yeah.
See if we can't drag that mature buck into our location. Yeah. It just
didn't work out for us, but that's hunting.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that's going to happen.
That's right.
So.
All right. Well, it sounds like y'all had a good time anyway.
Oh yeah, man. It's always good to get up there and meet new people and
absolutely
hunt new areas.
The biggest thing, when one day it rained us out all day. If anybody goes up to Ohio Trophy Buck Outfitters and you do have issues with what's going on and you can't actually get out in the stand, Woodbury Outdoors, they have a perfect setup. We went, us and our other hunters, we went out there. We did a techno hunt.
It's a techno hunt.
I mean that was fun. Of course.
What is that?
Techno hunt. You basically shoot at a big screen.
Oh yeah, okay. Like in the archery shops that they have.
Exactly, man. You spend an hour and a half in there just cutting up, shooting.
That's cool.
Having competitions.
That's cool.
But I'd highly recommend going in there if you have problems like that with the weather. You don't want to sit in the lodge all day. It's like maybe a 20-minute ride.
Good practice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It kept us in shape and ready for when a deer did walk out in the stand. As being part of at Ohio Trophy Buck, you actually get a discount and percentage off on anything you buy there.
Big list, like 20-30% off of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they're in partnership together.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. That's also a good way to check the accuracy of your bow, too. You know, before you go out in the woods after traveling nearly 750 miles.
Oh yeah, all the roads. Yeah, it'll be definitely good practice.
Oh yeah.
So Ron, now that we've talked about our trip up to Ohio, what was it like after your long drive to Illinois?
Well, Steele and I went to Root House, Illinois, and went and visited Tall Time Outfitters. It was a good long drive for us up there as well. It was about 700 miles. Took us about 10 or 11 hours to get up there. That place is fantastic. It's run by a guy, Joe Gizdick, that just, man, he knows everybody in the outdoor industry. He's filmed for a lot of people. He's got a lot of film experience and a lot of equipment and everything. He gave us a lot of pointers while we were up there. You know, told us, you know, camera angles we need to use and filters and stuff like that we need to use on our cameras. And I think you'll see that our footage improved this year. We saw a ton of deer while we were up there, man. Just a ton. The first night we got in there, they put us in a bean field. There were some standing beans. We saw 21 deer that night. One was a good buck, but he came in after shooting light, so we didn't get him on camera. The way that we were sitting, and we had to hang a cameraman stand when we went in. But the way that we were sitting, Steele was facing the woods, and on the other side of him was a big CRP field. And the CRP field kind of came around like this, and then the bean field was back here. So he was facing the CRP field where they bedded. We had the wind blowing right in our face. I was sitting on the back side of the tree, you know, shooting over his shoulder. And we had a trail coming right by the tree. And we figured, you know, man, this is going to be easy. The deer are just going to get up out of bed. They're going to walk through this head of woods, and they're going to come right by us and walk into these beans. And I'll be daggum if every one of them didn't come out of the corner of the bean field and walk right down through our wind. But fortunately, we had taken a lot of precautions on our scent control. We were up pretty high. Like I said, you know, we saw 21 that night. Went into the same set the next day, saw 30. Got a couple of smaller bucks on video that night. Now, before we went into the set, Joe told us that during shotgun season there had been a 170-inch buck in that area that had been shot at and was wounded and was limping. So on the second night, after seeing these 30 deer come in, and like I said, a couple of small bucks, we run out of camera light again. We're starting to pack up, put everything away, look across the bean field, and man, there is this huge deer coming all the way across the bean field. He's walking right down the center of the bean field, and he's limping. So, you know, was it him? He was probably about 200 yards out, 250 yards out. Couldn't really make out his rack. You know, it was pretty dark, but he had a very pronounced limp. So there's a good chance that it could have been him.
When in both instances, and one thing we can't stress more with all hunters doing archery is that scent control,
Absolutely.
Regardless of wind.
Absolutely, because you know, you never know where the deer are going to come out. You know, you can look at the woods and you can read the woods and the trails and everything, and you can set up and try to hunt the wind, but the deer aren't on the same script that we're on. Right. You know, they're going to do what they do. And I got a good instance of that on our second Illinois trip, of the deer doing exactly what they want to do, not what we want them to do. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right, because we ended up seeing 58 deer out of this one set, and every single deer we saw was downwind of us, and not one time did we get busted, not once. I've got footage where I actually have to stand up and put the camera down like this to shoot two does that are standing directly under me.
And we can't push that more.
Nope.
Scent control.
Wear your scent blocker and use your Hunter Specialty scent killer, scent away products. Absolutely. But so anyway, so then we went on and we hunted a 33-acre cut cornfield. There was a little peninsula in between two cornfields. There was another plowed field on the other side of the fence on the other property, and Joe told us that there was a funnel area right there where they were coming in out of a hardwood bottom, coming around that big fence post and feeding right around that peninsula. And man, it was just eat up with tracks all over that place. And ended up not seeing a deer out of it. It was gorgeous. Steele says on video, you know, that it's always been his dream to hunt in Illinois, in the snow, on cut corn, and we got to do it and didn't see a deer. We got some quail, but we didn't get any deer.
It just happens sometimes that way.
Yep.
Everywhere's tough hunting.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's another thing too. You know, make sure that you match your camouflage pattern, you know, to your surroundings, because you go up north like that. I mean, as you can see in the background here in Alabama, we still got leaves on the trees in mid-January. You go up there,
there's
late
no leaves.
season, Man, there is no cover whatsoever. You stick out like a sore thumb. So
you look like a big lump on the side of the tree if you use something regular like real tree AP.
Exactly, and that's something else that we learned while we were up there too. Is you know, if you can stand up in your stand and get closer to the tree, I've got a pretty good example of that on camera as well, where the sun is behind still and it's casting his shadow of the tree and him onto the snow. And he's sitting down in the stand and you can see his profile sitting there. It's two 90-degree angles sticking out like a sore thumb on the side of this tree. And I whisper to him to stand up, man, and he does, and he just disappears right in the side of that tree.
That's awesome.
It is so cool. You know, so that's another thing that you need to be cognizant of when you're going up there too. But so anyway, you know, we got some snow while we were up there. Actually one day when we were there, we woke up that morning, it was 2 degrees. So
wow.
Man, let me tell you, it was cold. And all the hunting that they do up there is all in the afternoon. Joe said that they have not killed a mature buck on that property after December 1st in 15 years during the morning hunt. Mm-hmm. So we didn't even waste any time hunting in the morning. We would get up, you know, around 9 or so, watch some hunting videos or watch some college football, and eat us a good breakfast, go take showers, you know, wash down a scent killer soap, and then we would go get in the woods, you know, probably around 12:30.
Now, from the first time you went to Illinois and you weren't prepared for that temperature change to our second trip, and when you went to Illinois, how was the clothing and the type of layers that you packed? What was the difference in the two?
Well, I took probably just about every piece of hunting clothing that I own, every piece of camouflage, every piece of base layer and everything. And there were a couple afternoons when I pretty much wore everything I had. Being the cameraman, you know, it's a lot less restrictive and everything, you know, so I could really bundle up and stuff. Still had some thermal, some fleece. You know, he used a fleece scent lock outer layer. So he stayed pretty warm. The winds were not too bad the week that we were up there. Maybe I think the highest winds we got into was 8-10 miles an hour, something like that. So it wasn't too windy. But later on in the week, on our second hunt, the wind chills, man, were just brutal.
Picked up.
Yeah, the buttons on the camera are so small, and shooting a bow, you know, we didn't wear gloves. So we had our hot hands in our pockets and everything, and then we'd see bucks, or see deer that we wanted to shoot, or you know, we wanted to shoot him talking or whatever. I would pull my hands out and run that camera, man, and I mean, just like that, they froze. They froze.
Tough conditions.
Yeah, it was tough. But so you know, then our you know, we were at Tall Tines, and then our buddy from our first hunt up there in Illinois, Ben Plattner at Timberland, and our guide Derek Jancart, they called us and said, we got some hunters in here right now and they're seeing shooters. And Derek was hunting too, and he had been seeing shooters every day. They said, man, y'all need to get up here because we're seeing them.
How far of a difference is it?
It was about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes.
Still wasn't much of a
north,
drive.
further north. Yeah, so it wasn't bad at all. So they called us, and since, you know, we didn't tag out the first time we were there back in October, you know, we could go back. So we packed up our stuff and headed on up there. And sure enough, we got up there. It was colder. We got a good snow that night. You know, the accommodations, you know, we were used to and everything. This was more of a semi/self-guided type of hunt, you know. We provided our own food and all that kind of stuff. But man, they were on the deer that week. So our first set up there at Timberland this time was up on top of a ridge. We had a hardwood bottom behind us, and we were sitting on a turnip patch. And we saw a couple of small deer, you know, nothing major. So that first night was kind of a bust. The other guys that were in camp, that was their last night to hunt. So we got back in that evening. They all packed up and they left out. So
Give you free range of.
yeah, that gave us that gave us more opportunity of where to hunt on the property. And so the next night, we wanted to go back into an area that we had hunted earlier in the season, which it's in a big bowl behind a dam. This property is currently owned by a power plant, and it's being sold. Ben has got an investor that's going to come in and buy the property, and then let Ben run it next year. So that he'll still be in operation next year, and that's going to give them a lot more free range to do stuff on the property as well, because the power company won't let them push down any trees or anything like that. But we had scouted this area out earlier in the year, and it was by far, to me, and you'll see it on the video, it was the most beautiful area on the property. It's this big bowl surrounded by hardwoods. It's got alfalfa fields in it. It's got beet fields in it. It's got a little road that runs up through it, and a little pond area right at the base of the dam. Unfortunately, early in the season when we went up there, they were working on the dam, so we had trucks driving by, 4 or 5 times. So, and
Which is in our last video.
Yeah, 15 yards off of where our stand was. But we wanted to go back in that area, because we just knew that it would produce. So we went in, they had a stand set there. We took our muddy lock on, we put it up. We sat over the beach where Derek said, he said, now you're going to be facing the road. There's a little bridge coming out of that head of the woods right there at the back side of the pond, and the deer are going to walk across that bridge, and they're going to come right to these beets. Once it freezes, those beets, the sugar content, exactly, the sugar content in those beets come up. It's like candy. So we're sitting there for maybe 45 minutes, and bam, just like that, 4 does come out, and they walk right across that little bridge, just like Derek said, walk right into the beets and get within 20 yards of us. And we're like, man, it is going to be on tonight. Well, they fed there for about 10 minutes. They walked across the bridge, and they went to the little alfalfa field. Every other deer we saw that night was in that alfalfa field, and we saw several bucks over there as well. I've got some video of a couple of smaller bucks back there fighting. We saw a couple that we think might have been shooters. It was probably, I don't know, 150, 200 yards away. There was a couple in there that, we guessed were probably shooters. So what we decided to do was the next night we were going to go in and set up on that alfalfa field. Now, there was no set in there. So from the video, our guide Derek was able to pick out a tree that we could get 2 stands in. He went in there with us on that 3rd night. We hung a double set. He cut shooting lanes for us and everything, and we got up in the tree. And buddy, let me tell you, man, that set was awesome. Awesome. Except that every deer came out into the beet field. Well, not every deer, most of them. We had a couple of does come out right at the base of our tree, and they walked across the bridge again. They went into the beets, and they pretty much stayed there. And then we had about a 170, 180 class buck walk out into the beets. Got him on video. And then we had, you'll see it, we had a shooter come out, and he walked across the bridge, came right into us, stopped right in the middle of the road, gave us a quartering toward shot at about 48 yards. Still put it on him. Unfortunately, he had too many clothes on, didn't have a sleeve. That's another thing that I recommend anybody that go up there. If you're going to be, wearing a lot of clothes, either practice shooting in what you're going to be wearing, and practice wearing a sleeve. Steele actually had his sleeve taped up with electrical tape, but it was still kind of bulky, and his string hit his sleeve, and the arrow kind of went in at the deer's crease of his offside leg, and he only got about 2 inches of penetration on it, and actually in the video you can see his arrow bounce in the road after he shoots the deer. We did blood trail the deer. He went and laid down and actually dropped his antler after we shot him. They were dropping real early up there this year, but this was laying in his bed where he had bedded down.
Broke off that.
Big G2 on that thing.
Yeah, it is a big G2. Both of his brow tines were broke off, and he broke this one off and chipped this one here a little bit. But you'll see after Steele makes the shot, the deer goes back into the beats, and he actually goes back to feeding. So you know,
Has a little limp to him.
He had a limp to him. You know, it definitely didn't get in any vitals. You know, none of us ever want to wound a deer. I mean, that's the bad thing, but we've gone back and watched this footage 1,000 times. You know, we're absolutely confident that the deer is going to survive the shot. You know, so we're not worried about that. And you know, we do have a little memento of him. But it's really cool in the video. You'll see him when he's standing there in the beats. That big 170, 180 class deer comes over and pushes him out of the beats, man. And he's got his tail all flared out. He's showing that dominant buck behavior. And I've got some other bucks in the background sparring, and I want to say it's the same bucks that were sparring from the night before, but I'm not sure. But they sat over there and sparred for like 30 minutes, man. It was awesome. You know.
Good sight to see right there.
Absolutely.
One thing from watching that shot 1,000 times like we did, if I can suggest anything, is Luminox.
Oh, absolutely.
Them are night and day difference on your shot, especially when filming. But even when not
You
filming,
always see shot placement.
you can see shot placement on the camera, and you can also watch your arrow to the deer. Because sometimes if you are making a shot right at dusk, you're looking through your sights, you can watch that arrow all the way to the deer, and you don't have to wonder, well, it is dusk, did I make the shot, did I not? You know for sure that arrow penetrated.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Luminox from Burnt Coyote is, you know, if Steele had not been shooting Luminox, it would have been very hard for us to pick out. His bow is so fast, it would have been very hard for us to pick out exactly where he hit that deer at. And then, you know, with the arrow laying there in the road and him only getting a couple of inches of penetration, you know, we would have had no idea. But with that Luminox, and we were able to watch it, you know, right after the shot, we played the video back, you know, and followed that arrow all the way through, and knew that it was a less than ideal shot. But got some great video out of it, and the most important thing is, you know, we learned a lot of lessons from it, you know, and you know, I've been hunting my whole life, but every time you go in the woods, you know, you can learn something.
You learn something else.
Absolutely.
It'll have us better prepared when we take our trips next year.
Absolutely, there is no doubt. I know I'm getting some better clothes.
Better clothes and we'll be better prepared.
Yeah, and a lot more hot hands.
Oh yeah.
A lot more hot hands. Yeah.
Well, did you have fun?
Man, we had a blast. Man, we saw again, you know, in 7 or 8 days of hunting up there, we saw over 100 deer. We saw a lot of bucks. We saw good quality bucks. We saw an excellent age structure of the deer. We saw big mature does. We saw young deer.
Generations on generations.
Exactly, and you know, that's one of the great things that they're doing up there is they're managing their herd. You know, we saw that last night. I'd say probably 10 or 12 young bucks. And actually, we got a great 2.5-year-old. I don't know, what is he? 8, 10, 11, 12 points, something like that. He's got 3 small drop tines coming off of both of his main beams. He's a 2.5-year-old deer. He walked within 25 yards of the stand. We had a shot on him, you know, but he was a young deer. We wanted to let him grow.
That's good management.
He's absolutely.
Deer still drawn back on him, and then at that point made that determination.
He did draw on him, and he did determine that, you know, he was a young deer and he was going to let him walk. You hear him bleat, you know, in the video to get him to stop and give him a shot. Unfortunately, the deer was behind the tree when he drew, so I didn't get that. But you know, I got great video of him, you know, before that, and you can see it drop tines in. Let me tell you, man. In a year or two,
It's gonna be a stud.
that joker is going to be a stud, man. I would definitely go back to Timberland and hunt that joker again. Yeah, it's a nice deer. All right, so that wraps up our 2012, early 2013 deer hunting trips to Illinois and Ohio. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
It's been fun.
It's been awesome.